The Chamber of Dominion inside the Crucible Citadel buzzed with anticipation. High Chancellor Ornan Tesserus, the most feared authority in the Lyrics Dominion, had overseen countless eradications of lesser species. Today, however, would be a spectacle like no other. "Esteemed ministers of the Dominion," I declared, letting the subtle resonance of my double larynx echo across the chamber's crystalline walls. "We gather to demonstrate once and for all that our rule is absolute." Rows of angular seats rose in concentric circles, housing ministers from over 100 star systems. At the upper tiers drifted the Glacian drifters, fragile beings of solidified mist. In the lower galleries perched the Tenrax Shardkin, their gem-like exoskeletons catching the artificial starlight. Even the elusive quantum drifters sent an observer, though they manifested only as a flicker of prismatic light hovering near the back. "Present the prisoner," I commanded, raising my right manipulator in a formal gesture. A sphere of shimmering containment fields activated in the center of the chamber. Suspended within, held by gravitic restraints, was a single human woman. Her name, Captain Harriet Bolden, former commander of the Earth exploration vessel Sunstrider, captured during a doomed diplomatic mission. A hush fell over the assembled aliens, though some hissed or rumbled in amusement at the sight of such a primitive. Even the stern-faced ministers leaned forward, their antennae and optical receptors locked on the prisoner. Lord Zatar Vran, an ancient figure with serpentine scales fading from teal to crimson, sneered at the floating figure. "Humans," he spat, his frilled cowl rippling with disgust. "Monogendered pairs. Linear time. So pitifully mortal." Whispers and gentle pulses of psychic laughter traversed the chamber. I, Ornan Tesserus, allowed myself a smug trill from one of my larynxes. "Minister Zyhala, begin the analysis," I said, giving a nod to our chief scientist, a towering figure with 6 tentacles that glowed at the tips, each working a different control panel. Minister Zyhala stepped forward. "We've thoroughly dissected human biology before. Their neural complexity is respectable, if unremarkable. Yet they always claim they're adaptable and resilient. We'll soon see." At my signal, a ring of slender probes emerged around the force bubble, each designed for extraction, the Dominion's polite term for a carefully orchestrated torture designed to harvest neural pain signals. The ministers waited in silence, some of them exchanging excited pheromones or glowing fractals in anticipation. "Captain Harriet Bolden," I intoned, reading her name from the official charge doc. "You and your species stand accused of intruding upon Dominion territory and questioning our supremacy. Your sentence: a public demonstration of your irreversible downfall. Let Earth tremble at this day." She lifted her head. Despite the gravitic restraints, her eyes fixed on me with unsettling calm. Then she smiled. "What a show you've planned," she said. "But you'll regret putting me on center stage." A ripple of shock passed through the ministers. Rarely did a condemned being speak so plainly, or so insolently. "Begin the procedure," I snapped, annoyance flaring in my voice. Golden arcs of energy danced around Harriet's containment. The neural probes slid forward with a whir, hooking into precise points along her skull, spine, and limbs. Glowing monitors displayed her vital signs to the entire chamber. Minister Zyhala's tentacles tapped furiously on multiple control surfaces. "Increasing neural signal capture. Expecting standard thresholds." Wait. This is odd. Already, Harriet's pain readings were off the charts, yet her heart rate remained almost steady. A hush stretched taut across the chamber. "Is this normal?" I demanded. "Not at all," Zyla said, her tentacles trembling with excitement. "She's experiencing intense pain, but her neural patterns are reorganizing themselves faster than we can process." "How clever," Harriet murmured, blood trickling from her nose. "You want to see what makes humans so special? Keep going. I dare you." Her voice, raw with agony, held an undercurrent of defiance that made even the scornful ministers uneasy. Zetar Vran roared. "Silence her babbling. Show the galaxy we do not tolerate such insolence. Increase power to maximum," I commanded. "She's just another insolent species out of hundreds." Yet for all our bravado, a sense of dread began to fester. Our instruments flickered, some displaying subspace anomalies. The watchers from the quantum drifters glowed an alarming hue, like they were sensing something extremely dangerous. A sudden spike on the monitors. Harriet's muscles spasmed as we pushed the extraction to lethal extremes. Her laughter cut short with a gurgling gasp. Life readings plunged. "Entering life space at high speed. Subject's vital signs are failing," Zahila announced, her voice tinged with surprise and something like fear. Translating, Harriet's smile went slack. Her eyes glazed over, and her body slumped, suspended by only the restraints. "Death confirmed," I proclaimed. "Time of termination, 37.2 minutes from the start of extraction. The demonstration is concluded." A moment's silence, broken by the flicker of celebration. The ministers exhaled in relief, hissing and rattling their limbs in self-congratulatory display. But the instruments did not calm down. If anything, their readings went haywire, oscillating dangerously. The force bubble crackled. Lights dimmed. "High Chancellor," Zyala hissed, her tentacles thrashing in alarm. "I'm detecting quantum-level changes in her cellular makeup. But she's dead." The main door slid open briefly. Some drifters attempted to retreat in panic. But the entire Citadel went into lockdown. A swirling barrier of unknown origin sealed us inside. Zetar Vran bellowed. "This is no time for technical malfunctions. Dispose of the corpse." The disposal drones hovered closer, mechanical arms primed to disintegrate Harriet's remains at the molecular level. But as they neared, a violent surge of energy erupted from her body. The drones flickered, sparked, and fell to the ground, inert. And Harriet Bolden, who was dead, began to glow with a radiance that defied logic. It started as a soft light under her skin, like veins filled with liquid gold. Then her chest expanded with a sharp inhalation, an impossible breath for a corpse. Her eyes fluttered open, blazing with luminescent fury. In one fluid motion, Harriet rose. The restraints around her melted into molten rivulets that coiled like serpents around her ankles. The entire force field flickered and collapsed. "Shut it down!" I shouted, panic tearing at my composure. "All defenses open fire now." Concealed turrets in the Citadel's ceiling descended, each capable of vaporizing a city block. They unleashed scorching beams of energy directly at Harriet. She simply raised a hand. Those beams froze in midair, twisted like ribbons of colored light, and wove themselves into a swirling halo around her head. Then, with a casual flick of her wrist, she sent them ricocheting around the chamber, turning them into harmless cascades of glitter. Gasps, shrieks, and chirrs of alarm echoed. Ministers scrambled backward, tentacles and limbs shaking in terror. "You wanted to see what humans can do," Harriet said, her voice resonating with a harmonic that made the walls tremble. "You demanded proof of our so-called adaptability. Well, congratulations." She spread her arms and reality itself buckled. Panels and pillars in the citadel warped into new shapes. The shimmering barrier blocking the exits glowed brighter, sealing us in. Zihala gawked at the readouts. "She's generating energies beyond our entire knowledge base. Like a miniature neutron star compressed into human flesh. This can't be happening. The energies are magical, not the other way." She pointed at the data streaming from the... Harriet floated toward the center dais, as if gravity were an optional suggestion. Light danced along her limbs, each movement trailing sparks that painted the air with afterimages of golden fractals. Outside the Citadel's transparent dome, we glimpsed our planetary defense fleet converging. Thousands of capital ships aimed world-shattering cannons at Harriet's position. One might have thought such overwhelming force would end even a demigod. With a snap of her fingers, Harriet disassembled those warships before our eyes. Their hulls peeled apart like flower petals, scattering into star-like motes that reformed into mesmerizing patterns. Swirling mandalas drifting through space. "Is this how you greet your guests?" she asked, sarcasm dripping from her voice. "Such bad manners," Zatar Vran roared. "Stop this madness, you violate the natural order." "Natural order?" Harriet echoed. "You think you understand nature just because you've conquered a few hundred species? You never asked what happens to humans after you push them beyond death." A hush, a sense of cosmic dread. Even the quantum drifters trembled in kaleidoscopic patterns. One by one, Harriet turned her gaze upon each alien delegation. The Glacian drifters, having tried to flee, found themselves solidifying into crystal statues, pinned in place by Harriet's will. The Tenrax Shardkeen, those once proud gem-bodied colonizers, found their exoskeletons transforming into living prisms that played an ancient earth melody whenever they tried to speak. Ministers pleaded for mercy. A few tried to grovel, others tried to self-destruct. Harriet allowed none of it. Any act of aggression or final gambit fizzled into comedic, harmless displays, like fireworks spelling out, "Hello from Earth," and the spirit's laughter blended with the clapping of hands as the crowd served its first revelations. Ministers pleaded for mercy, but worry not, she said, her eyes shining with compassion beneath the fury. "I'm not here simply for revenge. I'm here to teach you what we humans have always known. Death is not the end. It's just a turning point." She gestured toward me. Ornan Tesserus, the High Chancellor of the Dominion. My own limbs began to seize. Armor plates across my body turned malleable, merging into elaborate costumes reminiscent of Earth's historical attire. Flowing robes, whimsical hats, embroidered cloaks. The entire citadel interior rearranged itself into an ornate theater, complete with balconies, velvet seats, shimmering footlights. The execution dais turned into a grand stage. "I've been thinking," Harriet mused. "Why should I just wipe you out? Where's the growth in that? Instead, I'll give you a taste of humanity's greatest power, creativity." In an instant, 1000, 0 years seemed to pass, though for us it was an unbroken chain of day after day. Harriet used her mastery of space-time to force the Dominion to perform. We reenacted Earth's tragedies and comedies, from Shakespeare to modern musicals. We were costumed, choreographed, and taught lines in archaic human languages, and every time we completed one grand production, Harriet found a new script. Outside our swirling, reimagined citadel, Harriet resurrected entire star systems we had ravaged. She restored civilizations once lost to our conquest. She traveled galaxy to galaxy, forging alliances, introducing them to the show. We, their former tyrants, were left with a singular role. We entertained. Strangely, over centuries, we stopped resisting. Our hatred morphed into something else. Wonder. For all Harriet's terrifying power, she was also showing us a better way. We discovered humility in the face of creativity and collaboration. The old Dominion hierarchy dissolved. Ministers turned into choreographers, set designers, comedic actors. And Harriet? She drifted among us in infinite forms. Sometimes a literal star blazing overhead, sometimes a glowing stage director with a baton of cosmic light. She made sure we understood, with each performance, that empathy and art were a far stronger currency than brute force. After what felt like epics, Harriet summoned us to the grand stage once more. The lights dimmed as she hovered mid-air, arms folded across her chest, a playful smirk on her lips. "I think," she began, addressing the entire citadel in a voice that resonated across the cosmos. "You've learned enough to be trusted again. You've paid for your crimes, through art, through stories, through redemption. So, let's do something new." Freedom, a wave of golden luminescence, pulsed out from her, unlocking every door, dissolving the intangible barriers. The Citadel's environment returned to normal, but with a new flourish. Swirling galaxies painted on walls, cosmic murals of every species we once subjugated, now thriving. The ministers looked at one another in stunned silence. I, Ornin Tesseris, felt my manipulator limbs tremble. Freedom? After so long? "Go," Harriet said softly. "Rule yourselves if you wish, or help others, or build something new. You are free to do whatever you desire." Her gaze landed on me. For a heartbeat, I recalled the day Harriet was dragged into this chamber, chained, beaten, and humiliated. Now she stood radiant, the shape of cosmic power turned benevolent. "I once asked if humanity would ever forgive us," I murmured. She smiled. Warm, compassionate, infinitely sad and hopeful. "We can't change the past, Ornan. But the future? That's a stage still waiting for its story." The overhead lights rose. The audience beyond our citadel walls, infinite observers from restored worlds, once overshadowed by the Dominion, burst into applause. Harriet, a luminous figure of swirling stardust, bowed. We all instinctively bowed in return. Ministers, drifters, shardkin, every species once complicit in the Dominion's cruelty, united in a single gesture. "And now," Harriet said, her voice echoing like a cosmic melody, "the show must go on. But this time, it's your show to write." And so we return to governance, not through fear, but with the soul of artists who finally understood the power of creation over destruction. Across the galaxy, countless beings joined in this new era, an age shaped by the unstoppable lesson that Harriet Bolden had taught us. We, the Lyrex Dominion, had once watched her die, But death, as it turned out, was just the start of her greatest performance.